What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Stadium Drive, week number 14, here with Storied Rivals Sports Media on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Will Ford here with you. We're in the car tonight because it's a little rainy here in Coshocton. We're here for the Division 4 Region 15 regional final between the top two seeds in the region, the number 1 new Lexington Panthers, and the number 2, the defending state champions in Division 4, the Indian Valley Braves. A rematch of last year's regional semifinal where Indian Valley won 42-23 en route to a regional final berth and eventually winning the Division 4 state championship. But a rematch here, this time in the regional final, a lot more at stake and a chance to move on to the Division 4 state Final Four. We've got 3 regional finals on tap for you tonight that Storied Rivals is covering, and we'll give you a look at the other 2 at the end of the show. But we really appreciate you joining us for playoff football. I wish I could be on the field. A little bit of rain, can't get wet out there with all this stuff. I don't mind getting wet, but I don't think the equipment would survive. So that's okay. We're going to be in the car tonight. Thanks for being here. And if you look at last year's matchup, Indian Valley had the same team last year that they do this year. A lot of returning guys, and of course they're led by their superstar all-world running back, Grady Kinsey. We'll dive into the numbers on him because he continues to just shatter records. But New Lex had a completely different team last year. Graduated tons of their skill positions. You know, they had Isaiah Stevens at quarterback, Carson Kellogg at running back, Bentley Hansen at wide receiver, guys that were all outstanding players in the Muskingum Valley League. They all graduate. And so now it's a new-look team for the New Lex Panthers this year, and did they miss a beat? No, they did not. They go 9-1, almost completed a 10-0 perfect run, back-to-back small school division champions, and now they match up against this Indian Valley Braves football team once again. And really, it's just what can you do differently to stop this rushing attack? But let's show you the numbers of what went down in last year's regional semifinal, because Grady Kinsey. It's actually interesting to note throughout that entire playoff run for Indian Valley, and I talked to head coach Matt Lancaster about this, and he'll give you more in detail, but Grady Kinsey was not healthy for the entirety of that playoff run, was probably operating around 60% throughout the playoffs. So it was really impressive what he was able to do during the playoffs against these New Lex Panthers and beyond. But Indian Valley won 42-23 in the 2024 regional semifinal in Division 4 Region 15. Kinsey carried the ball 26 times, 155 yards, 5 touchdowns. Riker Williams, their quarterback, 22 carries, 112 yards. He converted a 2-point conversion as well. And Isaiah Stevens for New Lex, 250 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, but he threw 3 interceptions, which was really the difference in that football game. He only threw 3 interceptions up until that point through the entire season in the first couple rounds of the playoffs. Threw 3 against the Braves, and Bentley Hansen went off with 8 catches, a $131 receiving, and a touchdown. But the difference was, we know Indian Valley's running game, their offense is explosive. They can score on any given play running the football. But their defense came away with key turnovers that really prevented New Lex from getting their footing and clawing back into the game. New Lex did go up 8-0 to start the game, but from there it was all Indian Valley, and those 3 turnovers were a big reason why. And so now the challenge tonight is, can New Lex not give the football away and give Indian Valley these chances to control the clock? Can you limit their offensive possessions, score whenever you enter the red zone? And then are you able to get a stop defensively? And I'm not sure what they plan to do. Yeah, and, football fans out there who watch football on, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, they might look at this and be like, well, just throw everyone in the box and just stop the run. It's not always that simple, though. And head coach Kevin Board with the New Lex Panthers will go into detail on why it's not as simple as just loading the box to stop the run. But let's start with that conversation with head coach Kevin Board with the Panthers. We talked about that Sheridan loss in Week 10. They had a chance to go 10-0 and lost in that game 31-21. And I think it's honestly kind of what the team needed, kind of a shot in the arm, kind of refocus. Not that they weren't focused before, but when everything's going well, sometimes you don't have your best stuff. And now since these playoffs have started, they have been unbelievable. They take down an undefeated Unioto in week 13 to advance to this regional final. So great football being played by the New Lex Panthers, and Coach Board talks about it here on Stadium Drive, Week 14, the regional final in Division 4, Region 15, here on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Coach Kevin Board, New Lex Panthers, joining us for the regional final in Division 4, taking on the defending state champion Indian Valley Braves this week. And I appreciate your time as always, Coach. You've had a tremendous playoff run to this point. And before we dive into the game with Indian Valley, I want to start with that Week 10 loss to Sheridan, because you had a chance to move to 10-0. But I wonder was there something about that game that, like, maybe you never want to lose to your crosstown rival, your Perry County rival, but did you almost need to lose that game in order to kind of reset, maybe kind of get a shot in the arm? Because these last couple games here during this playoff run, you guys have looked tremendous.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, first, I guess thanks for having me, Will. I appreciate all that you guys at Storied Rivals do for us and for the other teams. It's great coverage. But I don't know. It's sometimes, I guess the message that we really conveyed to our kids was, a loss is only a loss if you don't learn from it. And so we really want to take that loss and learn from it and take lessons to where we can improve ourselves. I think sometimes that you do get into a winning streak and some things get passed over because you're focusing on the big thing versus your details. But that's when you misstep is you're forgetting about those details, which have allowed your big things to happen. And I know there was some history talked about that week and talking about the chance to go 10-0 and be this and be that. And there's always that psychological piece of whatever you say to a kid, how they're going to perceive that, how they're going to play after that. So that's a constant battle that 10 years ago when I first started being a head coach, I never really thought about. It's just like rah, 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 let's go all the time. But then when we first came into the league or when Meadowbrook first came into the league and that first year playing them, we hyped that game up like it was the MVL championship. And our kids came out and played flat because I think that we had put so much on that game that it felt bigger than what it needed to be. And obviously it's a rivalry game. So there was just a lot of things that kind of came into it. I think Sheridan played probably their best game of their season against us Week 10 because, we were a team that put them out of the playoffs last year. We were the first team to beat them in however many years. So I think that they came out just with a different level of fire than what we had. But we didn't play poorly. I mean, we doubled them up in yardage. We turned the ball over a couple of times, and we had a special teams touchdown that kind of cost us that. 3 big plays really changed that game. And so that's kind of the message that we've continued to have since then is those little details, because the margin for error gets smaller and smaller each week, the better the teams get better. So, those things in that game was a perfect example of what can happen in a game where you have 2 even teams. One makes 3 huge mistakes, the other makes 0. That's the difference of that game. So continuing to get better from that. I thought our guys really learned from it, and it did kind of refocus on what we needed to do, which sounds silly, like, well, why weren't you just focusing on it? But again, sometimes there's just a lot that goes on, and you get so focused on your week-to-week opponent that you do lose sight on some of those details a little bit. But I think our kids re-energized from that. They wanted to bounce back, and they've played tremendously the last 2 weeks after having that bye where we really focused on sharpening up some of those details.
Yeah, and to your point about Sheridan as well, they were also, they had just lost the Tri-Valley, so that was an emotional week for them, and then they get ready to play you, and they're fighting just to kind of make the playoffs, I guess, at that point because they had lost a couple in a row. But what's been the most impressive part to you about, these last couple of weeks here during this playoff run? I mean, you took down Fairfield Union, who you played Week 1, but then Unioto was unbeaten at 11-0, and you defeated them last week soundly. What's been the most impressive part over the last couple weeks?
I would say defensively, truly. We had 2 special teams touchdowns last week. One on a bad snap on a punt that we gave up, and then a kickoff return for a touchdown that we gave up. So if you take those 2 out, really, if you dig them in, the defense has allowed 0 points through 2 weeks, and that's against 2 teams that really run the football. So I thought our defensive line and linebackers have done a great job. But I would say defensively, you have 2 shutouts and 2 games with those. that's been really good. I think our defensive line, our linebackers have done a great job. I know that Harrison and Tanner are the two guys that really get the headlines for our defense. But Terrell King's been playing really good. Paul Stenson had a great game last week. I think he had 2 sacks, and last year in the playoffs, Paul played his best ball for us. So we're hoping that that's a sign of things to continue to come from him on the defensive side. He's been great offensively, but now he's adding more on the defensive side as well. But I just think the way our defense has played and really allowed or minimized the amount of yardage, the amount of plays and things that we've given up. You behold last week's team who had the district running back of the year, district player of the year on offense to negative yards rushing. That's a great thing. Well, their team, not necessarily him, but that was a great job. So I think our defense has done a great job, and we're looking to continue to build off that this week when we're going to need a big defensive performance.
I was going to say, yeah, your defense has been outstanding for the overwhelming majority of the year, but you might need to play your best game yet against the defending champs. And I know when you played this team last year in the playoffs, Grady Kinsey, I'm not sure if he was 100%, but, anything less than 100% Grady Kinsey is still better than a lot of players that you run into, especially in the playoffs. He had 155 yards and 5 touchdowns against you in the playoffs last year. And then their quarterback, Riker Williams, also gave you a little bit of trouble as well running the football. He had over 100 yards rushing. Is there anything – I know your team's there's a lot of new faces on your team, obviously. It's not the same team that is walking into Indian Valley like last year's. But is there anything different that you need to do to match up against that running game a little bit better?
I don't know. He's a tremendous competitor. I'm talking about Grady, man. He's should win Mr. Football. Should have won it last year, in my opinion. He just won it again this year. He's just a tremendous talent, and it's great for our kids to be able to go and play against somebody that is that good. I think he's going to do great things at the next level. But if you look at his stat line, you just said like only 155 yards, that we did a decent job of what our game plan was, which was trying to minimize his big plays. If you look at his stat line in any other game last year, 200 plus, and so the only thing that we didn't execute at a great enough level was getting stops. We minimized, we cut his yards per carry from 13 down to 6. We made them earn and go up and down the field, that we minimized the big play, which is what our goal was. But at some point you have to get them off the field. We had a drive where we go down and we turn the ball over on the 5-yard line, and then they go ahead and go 95 yards and score. That's incredible. High school teams don't go 95 yards without making mistakes. So I think if we can continue to make them drive and put together 95-yard drives and put something together, man, again, at some point you got to tip your cap and say, well done. But it just doesn't happen a lot because tends to be mistakes or a penalty, which sets you back. And now you're no longer down a distance. You end up punting or turning it over. So if there's one big difference, that's got to be it. We've got to get some stops on defense. I think we did force them to punt once last year, which was a stat in itself that not a lot of teams did that. But
yeah.
So if we can force them to punt and put them in a position where they can't just continue to control the game by scoring every time they have it, that's going to lend us success, as well as putting points up when we have the ball. You can't give these guys a 2-touchdown lead and expect to play because they'll just milk the clock and run it out. So, we've got to go punch per punch. We got to get some stops or create turnovers. And again, that's what we talk about. It's 2 good teams playing, who's going to make the most amount of mistakes or who can make the fewest and come out on top. So like I said, we're going to try to manage it. He's going to get his yards. He's too good of an athlete and a player to not go out and perform at a high level. He's going to do that. The quarterback's a great athlete as well. So we've got to tackle, and we've got to tackle them early. If they get ahead of steam, they're tough to bring down. So we've got to get them at the line of scrimmage and finish the play when we have the opportunity, not allow those big plays to blossom after contact.
Is it not as simple as just, playing man on whatever receivers are lined up out wide, and then you just stuff the box with everybody else just to put as many hats on Grady and their quarterback as possible, whoever carries the football? I mean, I know that sounds way too simple. That's not how football works, but you got to try something, right?
Yeah, that's if you're the guys that sit at home and watch football all weekend, that's what they would tell you. Well, just put everybody on the line of scrimmage.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
That's the chess match of it. So obviously those guys are the 2 that get the most carries for them, the most touches in their offense. But what you don't necessarily understand is the X's and O's behind it, that the concepts that they're running on the offense, where they're pulling 1 or 2 guys and getting extra gaps to the play side. They can run strong, they can run weak. but they'll formation you where they'll put 3 receivers or 2 receivers plus 3-man offensive line service. So you have to account for the receivers, so that widens you out. But then they're going to hit you right now, and if you do stuff it and then they bounce, if you put everybody at the line of scrimmage, you don't have levels to your defense, and so
Right.
it's not as simple as just put everybody in the box and
Yeah.
tackles. It's a little bit more intricate than that. So we've got to be able to fit the runs and finish the plays when we have the opportunity to. Obviously, we've got to be able to do some things differently that, you can't just sit in one front, because they'll say, well, if this is what they do, then we'll line up this formation until they find one that they like where they have a numbers advantage, and then they'll take advantage of that. So we just got to be able to mix in our fronts and our pressures and different coverages to be able to maybe provide a little bit of uncertainty in what we're doing for them. So you can't just say, well, when we do this, they do that. It's a given. A lot of teams, when you play like more of a spread team, teams when they go trips, teams tend to have one or two. This is my trips check, so you can get to them into that check and then attack them in a certain way. So same thing. They're going to try to see what formation, because they run a bunch of them, what formations give you trouble because you don't have the numbers to be able to fill the gaps, and then they're going to attack you that way. So like I said, that's the fun part. That's what's kept a defensive coordinator up the last 3 days at night.
Sure.
Trying to find a way to fit it, but there's just no way. My favorite story, I think one of my favorite, I can't say my favorite, but of coaching, we were playing Coshocton one year, who's a wing T, and that's an offense that is very challenging to stop because you just don't ever have enough hats everywhere. And we went through a game meeting one time, and we defended every formation. We felt so good. We had our last formation, and the coach said, I think we got 12 guys on the board, and we were drawing them up. And as you look, and we sure enough did have 12 guys on the whiteboard, so we had to redo that. And it's like, well, did we have that? Yes, we did. Every offense formation they had, we had 12 guys. So if you have more guys, you can feel good about stopping everything. But
Sure.
no way to perfectly equate numbers to where, again, they can run weak. So they could say, hey, we're going to overload this side, but then we're going to run counter, backside, pull a guard, and a tackle. Now they've got +2. So we've got to be able to read that and see our keys and be able to play off of that.
Hey, whatever advantage you can get, if you can slip an extra guy on the field here and there, I mean.
Well, we didn't. It was just in whiteboard talk.
No, I know. I know. I'm joking.
Air Force needs Grady to be at the Air Force Academy this Friday night. He's welcome to attend. Nobody's going to complain from our side, I promise.
Sure. Yeah. No, but listen, I love learning a little football here on a Wednesday. I appreciate you you hopping on, Coach, and talking football, man, for 10+ minutes. And best of luck against Indian Valley, the defending state champs. It's going to be a great game to watch. We're looking forward to being there, and I always appreciate you giving me 10 minutes to talk football, man.
Thanks a lot, Will. I appreciate you and all that you guys do. Thank you very much.
The Panthers' defense has been lights out all season long. It might be as good as they've been offensively under Coach Board and his system, spreading things out. Their defense might be the most impressive part of their team this year. I mean, so many games during the regular season where they were up 30 already at halftime, and you had that running clock in the second half. Preserve a lot of health for a lot of your key guys. Defensively, they have just been outstanding, especially in these playoffs. And we'll dive into some offensive numbers, but I really want to shout out some key guys defensively. Harrison Ratliff and Tanner Toth have been unbelievable for this Panthers defense all season long. And Ratliff leads the team in tackles with 89. He's got 3 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 4 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. He's also got 2 defensive touchdowns as well. He's been the MVP of this defense this season. Toth is second on the team in tackles with 61. He's got 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions. He's forced a safety, 2 forced fumbles and a recovery. Ratliff's also recovered 2 fumbles as well. And Terrell King, third on the team in tackles with 48, 8 sacks, and that's leading the team. 12 tackles for loss, which also leads the team. 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, a defensive touchdown. So many guys for this defense have been just outstanding. I mean, you look at Eli Stevens as well, 8 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, just eats up a lot of space up front, eating up blocks to allow those linebackers and people in the secondary to make plays. This defense has been outstanding, but the offense is going to have to keep pace with this Indian Valley group led by Grady Kinsey, and it starts with their super talented running back, their bruiser, Paul Stenson. 1,200 rushing yards through the season to this point, 108 yards per game. I've got yards per carry and yards per game flipped there. That would be quite impressive if he had 108 yards per carry, and also impossible. 108 yards per game, 7.6 yards per carry, 27 rushing touchdowns, and then I mentioned his defensive stats: 7 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, one of their best defensive players, maybe their best edge rusher. He is going to have a good game offensively running the football to be able to control some clock and limit some of these Indian Valley possessions and make this a little less of a shootout than what it's probably going to be. But it's not just him, though. Lane Ratliff, their quarterback, runs the ball really well as well. And they've also got a great backup running back in Colton Mathias. I do think New Lex has the best 1-2 punch at running back in the MVL when you look at what Colton Mathias is able to do as well. He's kind of a change of pace, but still really good. 543 yards rushing this year, and he's got 8 touchdowns. And we'll look at Ratliff's stats as well as their leading receiver as well. Ratliff has got 1,500 yards passing, 13 touchdowns. He's also carried the ball a ton for 764 yards, 6 touchdowns. And Tyson Spicer has really come on. I mean, he was hurt most of last season, and really over the last handful of weeks, he has really come on and been a huge target for Ratliff. 732 yards receiving this year, 61 yards a game, 10 touchdowns. And he's also been effective whenever New Lex tries to run different looks, a little bit of trickery, 137 yards rushing and another score. This offense is really talented. It's just as talented, if not more talented, than last year's group. Can they control the clock, limit turnovers, score when they're in the red zone? And then it's up to this excellent defense to just get one stop. One stop is all you need. And if you can score, you can go toe-to-toe with this Indian Valley group. But now let's dive into the Indian Valley side of things, and we'll start with our conversation with head coach Matt Lancaster, talking about Grady Kinsey, of course, who was a finalist last year for Ohio Mr. Football, should be a finalist this year, broke the OHSAA, a career rushing touchdown record. He's got just about every Indian Valley record. He's got state records. He has just been unbelievable, and the best part for Indian Valley is he is fully healthy during this playoff run, which makes this team maybe even more scary than they were last year, and they were excellent and outstanding last year. They might be even better this year. So here is head coach Matt Lancaster talking about Grady Kinsey, giving props to his offensive line and his coaching staff, but also how they match up with this new Lex Panther team that has a lot of different faces than it had last year. Here's Coach Lancaster on Stadium Drive, week number 14, the regional final here in Division 4. By head coach Matt Lancaster, Indian Valley Braves, the defending Division 4 state champs, got a win over Jonathan Alder last week in round 3 of the playoffs. And appreciate your time joining us, Coach, as always, man. And congrats on the playoff run to this point. You got New Lex coming up this week. But I want to start with your all-world running back, Grady Kinsey, who broke the Ohio's touchdown record. He is just an unbelievable player, and we've talked about him, in over the last couple of years, that I've got a chance to sit down and talk with you. But he now leads Ohio in touchdowns. He had 6 last week. Just talk to me about what makes him different than any other 1,000-yard rusher that you've coached in your career, because you've had a ton of them.
Yeah, we've had a few. I guess the one thing that makes him different is his work ethic, and he's so. We've had fast backs before. We've had big, bruising backs before, and he's kind of a combination of all of them, where he can run over you, but he can also take it to the house at any minute with his speed. But really, it's his work ethic. He only has one motor. Whether that's with his, academics, or whether it's on the field, whether it's in the weight room, whether it's with his faith or service or whatever, he's just 100%. He never takes a play off. Never, you're always going to get his best effort, and he just works so daggone hard, and he's tough. And more importantly, this year he's healthy. Last year at this point, he was probably at about 60%. And so him staying healthy this year and staying healthy for the most part throughout his career, besides the stretch in the playoffs last year, that's been important for him. But that's a testament to his his regimen and his training and his taking care of his body.
That's insane that you guys ended up winning a state championship and he was only at 60% for a stretch of that playoff run.
For the whole playoff run
Wow.
last year, he didn't even play in the second round playoff game.
That's
all.
right. Yeah.
He only had a couple carries in the first round game, and we had to bring him in. Well, he didn't play the first round game. He played the second round game just some, sporadically, but he hardly played week 8 or week 9. And looking back, we probably should have sat him entirely, knowing the how serious the injury ended up being. But he fought through it, man. He's a tough kid. He didn't have his top end speed throughout the entire playoffs, so we had to kind of adapt and do things a little bit differently. But he was still tough as there was for 4 yards and a cloud of dust.
Yeah, that's all you need. 3 plays and a first down. But
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it ended up working out in your favor. You ended up winning a state
did.
championship anyway. So,
It did.
but I know he's the type of kid though that he's never going to take all the credit for the amount of success he or the team has, no matter how much he contributes to it. I know he gives tons of credit to his offensive line. You've got tons of experience up there, and we've talked about it before. But I know your offensive line coach, I believe it's Chad Peterman. I mean, he must do just a tremendous job with those guys up front to get them ready to roll every week with whoever's behind him running the football.
He does, man. Coach Pete does a tremendous job. He's been with me for 20 years, and I don't know there's a better offensive line coach that I've ever seen or been around. Whatever group we have year to year, he just gets them ready, and we're never the biggest offensive line, across the board, but with technique and, with, their effort, it's just a work pale group that comes to work every day and they get the job done. He's got another group, an O-line group going really well for us, this year. But to your point about Grady, he always gives credit to everybody else. He's such a humble kid, and that's why people love him so much. That's why we love him so much, because he doesn't hold himself, aloof from everybody else. He's the one picking up the locker room and cleaning it up after practice every day. He's the last one there, making sure it's clean for the janitors. And his touchdown record that he got, most people don't realize he's run out of bounds intentionally at the 1 on a couple occasions in his career, just so we can get an offensive lineman, a senior, a touchdown.
Sure.
He doesn't need that, and countless times he slid because it was a smart thing to do to preserve a victory rather than scoring a touchdown.
Of course.
So he's so selfless. He'll credit the offensive line, his wide receivers blocking downfield, his coaching staff, and give it to everybody else before he puts it on him. And that's what's so great about him.
Yeah, no, tremendous player. He should be. I obviously assume you think he should be Mr. Football this year, right?
I'm a little biased, but I think so. I mean, I know it's rare to give it to a kid from a lower division school, but
right.
I think his career and what he's done this year, and I think he's earned it, in my opinion. But
yeah,
and you got to look at too, if you're just looking at stats. I know his stats are pretty good, but there was a couple games this year that he only had 4 carries.
Yeah.
A lot of games he only played a half, and he didn't have over 25 carries since week 1, I don't think, So a lot of he could, if we were stats people and he, if that was what was important to us, his stats could have been off the charts. But we're about winning football games and playing as a team, and he's about that too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the next step in winning football games and going for another state championship is New Lex, and they're a semi-familiar opponent. You played them last year at this point in the playoffs, but although their team is kind of the same in terms of what they believe in and what they do offensively and defensively, there's a lot of new faces compared to last year's team. You've got Lane Ratliff is in at quarterback, and he can do a lot of things with his arm and his legs. Paul Stenson is a bruising running back, but he's a great edge rusher, probably one of their best defensive players. You have Tyson Spicer, who is a really dynamic and athletic wide receiver, can do a lot with the football in his hands. What are your thoughts on what they do offensively and how you match up against the Panthers.
Well, like you said, I mean, it's a credit to their program and what Coach Board has done there that they're back at this point and as strong as they are again, because they lost almost all their skill last year. Most of their skill guys across the board graduated. They returned most of their offensive line, but moving their quarterback was a wide receiver last year. And he had injury last year, but he got speed, like you said. So that's a different dynamic that he can hurt you with his feet. And it's always dangerous when you're facing a team with a running quarterback. And so that's a whole different dynamic. They're a little different in the backfield this year with the running back. That's a physical runner. He's a physical runner that's hard to tackle. So they spread the field well, vertically and horizontally, to make you defend everything. And they got wide receivers out on the edge that can hurt you too. So I know they're known for their offense, but probably their biggest stride this year has been defensively. Defensively, they're a lot better this year than they were last year, and I know they've put a little pride in that, and that shows. So definitely a total team, as you'd expect to see at this time. Well coached, do things right, dangerous personnel on offense, and stingy defense.
Yeah, to your point about the defense, that's really where a lot of their experience is, especially in that front seven. And you mentioned the offensive line. Some of those guys play on the defensive line as well. What do you suspect they'll do defensively to try to match up against Grady? But also, you had success. Riker had a lot of success running the football as well. Kind of him and Grady, in tandem running the football. So that's another look that New Lex has to prepare for again. What do you suspect they'll do defensively to kind of match up against your running game and just how to defend you, I suppose?
But if you know the answer to that, go ahead and tell me right now. So we incorporate it in practice tonight.
Sure.
That last year they were a lot more of a man coverage team, and I think this year they're a little more zone. So I think they'll have more eyes on Grady, more eyes on the running game, and not commit as many guys. That's what it seems to me they've been doing a little bit more this year. But like you said, we've also got other guys, and Grady knows that too, with Riker, and not just Riker running the ball, but we've had 4 receivers that are over 200 yards receiving this year, and a couple of them are pushing that 300-400 yard mark. So it's a chess game, and obviously we're going to do what we do, and we're going to try to establish a run, and Grady's going to get his carries, but if they do stack the box, then we're going to have to take advantage of what they're giving us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it'll be fun to watch on Friday. We're excited to be there, Coach, and I appreciate you, as always, making time for Storied Rivals, and best of luck the rest of the way as you go on a quest for 2 state championships in a row.
Take care of this one as a regional championship first.
For sure.
Against a very good New Lex team. We're excited about it. It should be great atmosphere in Coshocton, and playoff crowd, and a great night for high school football.
Grady Kinsey truly is a one-of-a-kind back, Air Force commit. He is not the biggest kid in the world, only 5'9", but he's 202 pounds of just steel. Anybody that tries to tackle him just bounces off of him. He runs through everybody, but he can also outrun people too. He is one of a kind, should be a finalist this year for Ohio Mr. Football once again. And, I mean, his numbers last year were unbelievable. The numbers maybe not quite the same as last year, but they're still pretty darn impressive. This year he's rushed for 2,300 yards, 37 touchdowns, and over the course of his career, and he's still potentially, after tonight he could have 2 more games in his career, but if tonight's the last game of his career, his stats right now, 8,200 career rushing yards, 128 career touchdowns, and last week against Jonathan Alder, he had 302 yards, 6 touchdowns in their win 47-28 over the Pioneers, and he is now the new OHSAA all-time rushing touchdown leader, and I believe he's tied for career total touchdowns as well, rushing and receiving. So one of the best players that this state has ever seen. Grady Kinsey is an unbelievable player, and he would get my vote. He would have got my vote last year for Ohio Mr. Football, being the only running back in a class of guys, all quarterbacks, and I think should be a favorite this year for the award, even though, traditionally it goes to guys in the Division I landscape, and obviously a lot of MVP type awards when it comes to football, whether it's, college football with the Heisman Trophy or the NFL MVP, traditionally a quarterback award, but this kid's special, man. This kid is special. But speaking of quarterbacks, I do want to give some major respect to Riker Williams for this Braves football team, as well as one of their key guys defensively. But Riker Williams, he's their quarterback, but he's also an outside linebacker, and the outside linebacker portion is important, and I'll dive into those numbers here in a second. But 1,000 passing yards, 13 touchdowns. He's rushed for 9 touchdowns this year. Only 528 rushing yards. He was a 1,000-yard rusher last year, but Grady Kinsey is the focal point, and he is that change of pace and gives teams a different look defensively. Tyson Peterman on defense, maybe their best defensive player, 31 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hurries, but he got 6 sacks. He is just a stud defensively, and Coach Peterman does an outstanding job with the offensive and defensive lines. And Riker Williams, we talked about the offensive numbers, what he does from the quarterback position, throwing and running the football. But defensively, I think, is where he really stands out, because last year's tournament run for a state championship, he was all over the field defensively. In the state championship game, he had 8 tackles. In the state semifinal, he had 3 sacks. And in the regional final, he forced a fumble. And that's exactly what you want out of one of your leaders on your football team. It's not just the offensive production and the big plays and running the football. It's making the plays defensively in the backfield when it matters. And that's what they're going to need from him, as well as from Titan and other guys defensively, guys on the back end to maybe come down with an interception. That's maybe what's been more impressive to me, is just in key spots, this defense steps up, to support what this outstanding rushing attack and offense does. It's truly going to be a great game tonight. Indian Valley won the coin toss for this game. I heard them talking about it a few minutes ago over the PA. Indian Valley won the toss, deferred to the second half, so New Lex starts with the football, and that's how last year's game started. New Lex went down the field, scored a touchdown, went up 8-0, and then from there it was all Indian Valley, and they took control. So we'll see what happens tonight. But before I get out of here, let's take a look at all 3 regional final matchups that we have on tap for you tonight with Storied Rivals Sports Media. So, of course, our game there in the middle, New Lex, Indian Valley, Division 4, Region 15 final. We're here at Coshocton High School. But in Division 1, Region 3, that regional final is between the top 2 seeds, Olentangy Orange and Pickerington Central. Pickerington Central defeated Upper Arlington 17-16 last week, scored with 2 minutes remaining to win that football game, and Orange has been dominant throughout the season. Maybe had a little bit of a scare against the defending state champs Olentangy Liberty last week, but closed it out, and gritty win for the Pioneers. That's going to be a good game in Division 1. That's at historic Crew Stadium. And then at the bottom of your screen in Division 6, Region 21, Garaway, the 7 seed, really an outstanding playoff run being a lower seed. They're going to be at Kirtland at Louisville High School. That, again, is Division 6, Region 21. Kirtland has been dominant in Division 6 for the better part of 10, 15 years, winning tons of state championships, and that'll be a tough task for the Garaway Pirates and head coach Jason Wallach tonight. But those are our games on our schedule. 3 games left, 3 teams left that we are covering: Garaway, New Lexington, Olentangy Orange, and we'll see which teams move on to the state Final Four next week. We've got Thanksgiving next Thursday, and then, those games will be played on Black Friday, so can't wait. Really excited. Make sure you're following us on all the socials tonight. I'll be providing score updates and highlights throughout the night for New Lex Indian Valley, but just check out score updates from the other 2 games on our schedule as well. Want to give a shout out to our friends at maxeffortmuscle.com, best tasting protein in the game, supplements, pre-workout, protein, merch, and just great content from those guys at maxeffortmuscle.com. But I'm going to get out of here and get ready for some football here at Coshocton High School in the rain. Stay dry out there, everyone. Happy football and happy Thanksgiving, happy early Thanksgiving, because I won't see you until potentially next Friday. But happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and happy football, and take care.